Sambanan. Today I am in Oshuk, South Africa. It's on the Swaziland border, and there's Oshuk is a large community. It comprises of a few other communities, and today I'm in the community called Stabella, and I stayed with a family here who Magnoba is the name that I have trouble pronouncing. But it's the family that I'm staying with. Magnoba is he's the child that has welcomed me into this house, and he has a second name, and it's Sipo, which is Siswati for gift, and so most of the time I call him Sipo because it's hard to say Magnoba. What am I doing here? Well, I've been a part of the vision trip for Hands at Work, which a vision trip is when we try to convey what the vision is for Hands at Work to those who are outside of Hands at Work. So there's been a pastor from Australia, Tim McLaughlin. He's great. I stayed with him in a community in Zambia, and I'll tell you about that after. And then there's Jeff Locke from San Francisco, who's amazing, and I'd love to spend more time with him. Then we have the Canadians. There's Peter, Michelle, and Melissa, and they've just been an amazing blessing to have on this trip as well. Just to get to know them has been great. But what they bring to this is it would not be anything nearly as enjoyable without them. And so the vision trip, let me tell you about that. We started in Zambia, and we were at Kacheli Farm, where we started off, and we learned a little bit about Hands at Work there. And then the team was brought into a few different communities. We started with Kalende, and it's a deep rural community outside of Luanshya, Zambia, and you have to cross through some mining property to get there. It's very difficult to access this place aside from that road through the mine. Even through the mine it can be very difficult sometimes, but we got there, and we met so many children there that are cared for by the care workers of Kalende. And what's lovely about Zambia is that there's so many male care workers there, that the males are not absent as they are in South Africa. But Tim and I had the opportunity to stay with Kofilio and his grandmother. And I think Kofilio is the way that you pronounce it, but they said that we could call him Felix. So that's his name for short, is Felix. And so we stayed with Felix and his grandmother, and as we were walking to their place, I asked if there was any English at the home, and a care worker turned around and said, no. And then we kept walking, which was a bit of a surprise because my Bemba is limited. Panono is what I usually say to mean that I don't understand a lot of it. But we gathered around their small fire that evening, and they have a house that is probably about 2 meters square, and it sticks in the ground with tin siding and canvas on one side, and the holes in the canvas, and then a tin roof as well. And it's this corrugated tin that's very thin, and so the wind gets in there. It was cold. But when we got there, we realized that the grandmother had been drinking. She was not quite in her right state of mind, and so it's just the two of them. And it's sad to think that this is Felix's existence there, to be with his grandmother and him by themselves. And she often drinks at night, which doesn't mean she just has a beer or whatever. It means that she gets drunk. There's strange men coming around, either trying to get alcohol or sell alcohol or sometimes is not good people to be around. At one point, Felix disappeared into the night. We had no idea where he went. This is when we were still sitting outside around the campfire. And at one point, his grandmother got worried that she was missing, and probably just uncomfortable because we were trying to interact in very broken Bemba and English. Even her Bemba was slurred, so some of the people that popped by that or happened to be walking by, some care workers came by and they said, I don't understand what she's saying either. So she walked down the path to go see where Felix was, and she ended up meeting somebody down there, and quite obviously had more to drink while she was gone. She came back stumbling, and we had more awkward conversation. Later on, Felix came back with his aunt and his cousins, and they helped us cook, and they were really good to us. And his cousin Rogers had better English, so he stayed the night with us as well. So Felix had his cousin Rogers come and spend the night with us as well, which was really great. And we went to bed in this 2 meter by 2 meter shack, and as we slept, we were just on the floor. There is no beds in a hut like that. You just pull up a piece of ground and that's where you sleep. During the night, they had a blanket, and Felix and Rogers were sharing this blanket, and so it was grandmother, Rogers, Felix, and Tim, and myself. And so Tim was beside the boys, and they kept on pushing the blanket onto Tim all night to try to keep him warm, which is great. And it was cold that night, and it just makes me think that this is not just something that we did. We survived this night in the wilds of Africa or something like this. This is where they live. This is their home. This is every day. This is what they know. And so Felix, I've thought of him every night since, as he goes to sleep, and Rogers is always there. He goes to sleep with this grandmother who's having strange people come by all the time, and she herself is not a good role model. She's out of her mind, and it makes me sad that for Felix. It makes me sad when I think of how many people struggle hard to live. They're not looking for extravagance. They live simplistically, but they want to live well. They want to have good lives. They want, when I say the best for their brothers and sisters and family, they don't want the best things. They want them to know love. I mean, that's the gospel. That's what it means. The gospel is about being adopted into this family of God, to be loved, not just to say, you're in or you're out or this or that. And so we see these very beautiful people living in these lives that are where they're surrounded by this ugly, harsh existence. It's hard. And so I think of Felix, I think of other places I've stayed, and not only is it humbling, it also carries a sense of urgency with it, because people aren't in this position just because they were lazy or they this or that. There's been a whole ecosystem of reasons of the economy, the places, just being born into a place in Africa like this means that you will be the poorest of the poor, that your opportunities are very, very limited. You don't have the chances. That there's no, you work hard and you do well. It's this is your life. And these are the communities we work in, with the poorest of the poor, those that can't even reach that ladder to climb out of their situation. We believe the only thing that is going to matter, the only thing that does matter, is that they know who they are, they know who God is, and they know love. And through that, yeah, that's I think that's what matters. That's what's important. To get them stuff, to get them things, isn't really gonna make their life better. I mean, how many of us from the West have a whole lot of things, yet we still struggle in life? I don't know anyone who doesn't. So in some ways, maybe we're all in the same boat, but there's a certain urgency that's seen here. George will often say that the house is on fire. That's George, the founder of Hands at Work, where I've been volunteering for the last 2 years. He say the house is on fire. There's an urgency here. There's a situation that needs to be addressed, and we can't just let it go untouched because there are brothers and sisters. Yeah, when your neighbor's house is on fire, you don't just say, I'll be right over, I'm just watching, whatever it is. Yeah, you know, that's just watching this TV show. There's some wind. You don't say, just after this hockey game is over, then I'll be right out there and I'll help you. You don't say, yeah, I just gotta finish the dishes and then I'll be right over. I mean, there's an urgency. It's a serious situation, and we must act. So, saying that, I also want to thank everybody that's been a support to Christy and I being here, for acting when they can't actually be here, to being a part of what we're being a part of. I thank you very much for that. There's this song, and it's taken from the Bible in the book of Psalms, and it says, better is one day in your house, better is one day in your courts, better is one day in your house than 1,000 elsewhere. And it's talking about being in the presence of God. But this song was running through my head when I stayed in Oshuk the first time I was here with this family of 3 children and their mother. And all night this song going through my head, this lyric, and I kept thinking, what is good about this house? I mean, you could exist in it, but what was good about it? I thought, this family doesn't want to live in these conditions. I was, quite frankly, feeling very uncomfortable. This was my first time in community when this happened, and I thought, what is better about being in this place? And then as we got closer to the morning, something flipped in my head, and I thought differently about it. And I thought, I've come halfway around the world to stay in this house, to look into the eyes of these people that I'm staying with, and realize that these people bear the very image of their Creator, of a God who loves them. And had I not been there, I wouldn't know who they are. I wouldn't know their story. I wouldn't have been able to look into their eyes and them into mine, and to know each other. And I realized at that moment, yes, better is 3 nights that I spent there than 1,000 elsewhere.